I don't know what you heard about me, but if you can't get $1 out of me, no Cadillac, no perms you can't see, that I'm a P-I-M-P. Hey! Tanggalang-galang, 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 P. Tanggalang-galang-galang, tanggalang-galang, P.
So people are saying that every Tim Hortons is all Indians. Is that true?
Probably.
Why do you think that is?
I guess, you're in this neighborhood where lots of Indians and mostly students, right? So the students, what do you think where they're gonna freaking work? They cannot work in ICBC offices or in freaking, some federal law office. So either the jobs, they probably have McDonald's, Subway, or freaking Tim Hortons.
I'm just going to say it because it's gotten to a really bad point. But white people really need to stop treating brown people so badly. I just had 2 really bad experiences of my family and I getting treated badly. And you could clearly tell it was because of the color of our skin.
The other day I was hanging out with some of my white friends and one of them smelled really bad, which was really annoying because everyone just assumed it was me. I was like, guys, Tanner just played basketball for 2 hours. It's gotta be him. He's dripping in sweat. And they're like, okay, we all know it's part of your culture. All right, don't try passing the rupee like that.
This video will be a little bit tense. This video is not designed to demonize the South Asian or the brown people. Therefore, keep the comments respectful. Having said that, let's give credit to all the person's video to give you a different perspective. People, let's ride into the video.
I'm Canada. So? I have no problem.
So you can fucking kill me.
I have no problem. This is Indian people from...
But I'm gonna tell you right now why Indians are so now. Because we're number 1. That's what happens when you're on top. We're number 1 in North America. We're number 1 in Europe. We're winning all over the world, guys. And Indians are winning because of our work ethic, because we don't look left, we don't look right. When do you see Indians hating on others? We don't. We work. We're the ones that leave our families back in our country, go to a new country for a better life, build our life there, then bring everyone there. We're the ones that are doing the work that nobody wants to do. We're the ones that are willing to start from scratch, do whatever it takes. While everybody else on social media wants to hate about Indians being this, Indians being that, guess what? We're collecting the cash, we're winning, we're setting up our families. So hate it or love it, guys, Indians are on top.
Please don't forget to drop your comments. Let me hear your feedback, but please keep them respectful. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button here. Hit the subscribe button so we can grow and share more.
Is it just me, or is there this racism towards Indian people on social media, especially on TikTok? I think we've always experienced racism, but I think it's so much more prevalent on social media, and it seems like people think it's okay to say certain things about Indian people. And I think us as a community and as a population have become so desensitized towards it that we almost just ignore it, or we just laugh it off, or we even just kind of join into it sometimes. And I think that this is because of internalized racism, and I think we've become so used to this. I can't even begin to tell you how this affects somebody's sense of self and their self-esteem. We internalize this and we feel like we're not good enough. We feel like we're inferior. And this all affects us on a very unconscious level, so it might not be conscious to us. But it's just, I don't know, what are your thoughts? I just think it's so malicious and harmful.
So I'm tired of people saying that the people pooping on the beach, like that's what they do back home. We are not back home. We are in Canada. As a local, I refuse to let my kids dig in the sand on beach 1. And you guys are saying all the tents are gone? No, they're not. No, they're fucking not. The beach is full of tents. full. And this is not including in the side areas of the beach. There is little treed areas there that is like mini forest, but it's cleared. So people can put up camp there. That is where they're still 100% doing it. And they are still 100% doing it on the beach, but more discreetly. It is still happening. This is nothing that's going to change. People with that mentality will not change it. So people need to stop arguing with me and acting like this isn't happening. This is not just 3 years ago. This is today. This is this week. This is still happening. The tents are still up. The people are still coming.
Dallas has like the highest population of Indian people I've ever seen in my entire life. Like we literally moved into like a residential neighborhood of all Indians. And I've lived in a lot of neighborhoods. I've lived in Mexican neighborhoods. I've lived in black neighborhoods. I've lived in a white neighborhood, and now I live in an Indian neighborhood. And let me tell you, the Indian people, they're interesting.
They're great people, really. They're
Really,
good.
a few days ago, they were having like a parade of some sort for like the elephant god thing.
Yeah.
Looked it up, and there was literally 1 million. You would think we were literally in India. Like we literally have we are the only white people in our neighborhood. I'm sure the neighbors all talk about us.
We've brought some spice to the neighborhood.
We definitely
just like
have
their food.
some spice to the neighborhood.
Honestly, are people really pooping on beaches? Are there a lot of Indians in Texas?
From one Indian to another, some of y'all totally deserve the racism that you experience. Do you know the number of times I've seen an Indian in Japan out in public and I smile at them and they look away? Or they just stare at me and give me the stink eye as if I've just assaulted them or something. Why do you feel compelled to be unpleasant to other people of your own race, but then expect other races to treat you properly? Because these are the same people that will literally bend over backwards and give all smiles and pleasantries to a white person. I just know that they're the same people. And to be honest, it's generally most Asians who do this, right? One time I went out to eat and we were waiting in line with one of my friends, and there was this Singaporean lady and her daughter in line, and I could very obviously tell that she's Singaporean because of her accent. Anyway, she starts a conversation with my friend who's a white American, and obviously she's born and bred in America now. She doesn't have even a single bit of Singaporeanness in her voice. And my friend's pretty much telling her about the program we're in. She's like, yeah, we're Jets, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, oh, I'm from Singapore. And my friend is like, no way, my friend is Singaporean. This lady looks at me, she goes, oh, okay, and continues talking to my friend as if she, I don't exist. And then she proceeds to say, oh my God, you have to tell me all about how you got to Japan because my daughter really wants to move to Japan. I applied through the Japanese embassy in Singapore as a Singaporean. If anything, you should be asking me. But you're pretending that I don't exist and actively engaging the white person why. This is literally why we got colonized. This is exactly why. It pisses me off. If you are a brown person and you see another brown person, it should just be code that, you talk to them, right? And this Singaporean lady was Chinese. And look, Chinese Singaporeans were not very good to me on a good day in Singapore. So, I don't expect them to be good to me in a foreign country. But, as a brown person, where is your dignity? This shit with worshipping white people happens in my own family. That's, the most disappointing thing. It happens with, my extended family. Not my parents, thank God. But, my cousins and my aunts and uncles and stuff. It's honestly so disgusting. It's oh my God, where's your vekkom mana sudusone?
I don't like Indian people. They curry. I hope you're not Indian. Yes, we smell of the same curry that makes your butter chicken, chicken tikka masala, your tandoori chicken, and even the spices in your chai tea latte. It's funny how my culture's scent bothers you, but the flavors don't. And I understand if our spices are too much for you. Then just enjoy your spices, salt, pepper, ketchup, and mayo. I mean, if it really smells so bad, why don't you stick to your bland food?
Is in India, we don't have boundaries, personal boundaries, because it's India. We're shoved into a small space. So we come here, and Canadians, they have a really big bubble, right? And that's okay. But when you're in the grocery stores and you get too close to people, you just have to say, excuse me, right? I know Indians aren't trying to disrespect Canadians. They're just coming from a different culture. But there needs to be some education on how to make Canadians feel respected. If you just say hello, excuse me, and thank you, I promise you, half these issues would disappear.
Brampton, Ontario has really become a little India over the last 30 years, as many people know, especially in that region. Now, foreign workers are saying, not just Indians, but many foreign workers are saying good enough to work, good enough to stay. And in many instances, I can vouch that foreign workers are out-competing a lot of the youngsters in Canada. So do they have a good argument to say that they should extend the working visas?
Many Canadians are complaining that Canadians who are not brown cannot find jobs. But they're saying that most of the jobs are taken over by Indians. Is that true?
Every day I see so many racist videos and comments from Canadians saying, oh, there's so many Indians here, our kids can't get a job, they're taking away our jobs. You know, corporations want to save a few bucks and so they're getting cheap labor from overseas. What is the fault of the people who actually want to come and work? They don't know what the standards are. It's not low wage for them, at least for the first few years, because the country they came from did not even have jobs. So this is a fight against corporations because they are undercutting wages and they are trying to keep wages as low as possible. Minimum wage is like $17 something. In this economy, the minimum wage, even if it was like $45, $50, is not enough for somebody to survive. And there are people working at $17 because they do not have a choice. We don't want to come work in this country as slaves. Slavery was abolished just for the namesake. This is a new system. You get immigrants to come from their country. Their country sucks, of course. We agree with you. Our country sucks. And that's why we leave from there. And we come to other countries because we want to make a good living. And we want to live a good life. But when we get here, it's the same nonsense. It's corporations. It's some rich families, some rich people trying to own everything and not pay people properly and push people to live in poverty. And this was only happening to immigrants for a few years, but now it's come to a point where it started to affect people of all ethnicities, cultures, and nationalities. And that's why you guys are getting hurt. So instead of going against the government or the corporations who actually create this toxic environment, you're going against immigrants who are holding the economy and making it work at such a low wage. Yeah, we're immigrants. Okay, you're immigrants too. Or at least your dad, grandfather, great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was. And I don't want to be a racist, but honestly, white people came to the country, killed animals, and people from here, the Aboriginals, to actually own the land. We're not even doing that. We're working minimum wage jobs. And not by choice. It's because we're stuck. Like we get here and we're like, oh, now we have to work minimum wage jobs and we have to work 12 hours a day. And then maybe we're going to have to pay our employer to get a sponsorship if we want to settle here. This is a systematic error. It's not white people or brown people or Indian people or Chinese people who are at fault. It's the system. It's the corporations. It's the politicians. It's the government. They're taking money from all these people to come work for below average minimum jobs. Do you think we're enjoying this? Nobody is. Nobody's happy. We don't want to take jobs away from you. Canadians they're more than welcome to come work at Tim Hortons. But do you want to work at a wage so low? Because you know your rights and you know that this minimum wage is not survivable. But for somebody who's just come to the country, they just want to pay their bills, they just want to pay their rent, they just want to put table on their food, they just want to put table on their food.
Shut your mouth and let me talk.
2 times a day, if not 3. And that's why they're forced to work these jobs. If corporations, if Tim Hortons, Walmart is hiring Indian people over white people, then it's Tim Hortons and Walmart's fault, not ours. We're not even, most of the kids that come to this country are 18, 19-year-olds. So they're not even skilled. They don't even have exposure. And therefore, they're being abused. They're being forced to be slaves. And this is something that we need to fight against together. But there's an easier solution than that. You can just blame each other and get by and let corporations run the freaking world the way they want to, like they've been doing for so many years.
Is she right? Or am I confused? Am I the only one confused here?
When you bring in massive levels of immigration, now the GDP, of course, has increased, but the GDP per capita has gone down because there's more people to share that total production of the country with. It's like modern day slavery, where you're literally just using them for their money to prop up GDP so they'll come spend money, but there is no real future for them here. I see there's like reports of temporary students or foreign students. They're literally driving to the airport with their leased car that they would lease a cheap car, and they're just leaving it at the airport. I talked to a mortgage broker a couple weeks ago, and he's good friends with a repo guy, and he said he's so busy picking up these cars at the airport they can't keep up because the students are just fleeing the country because there's not enough work and the standard of living sucks. And of course, now the standard of living has gone down because you're living in basements, apartments for $2,000 a month. Meanwhile, 3 years ago, you could rent a whole house for $2,000.
Just wanted to speak to this as a Polish Canadian whose family immigrated from Poland when it was communist in the 80s and came to Canada. I heard so many Polish Canadians complain about Syrian refugees when they were coming to Canada and not about Ukrainian refugees. The racism and hypocrisy of it is unreal because we ourselves came to Canada as refugees and we were obviously given preferential treatment once we were in Canada, even if we had challenges of our own with assimilating to the culture, the language, having to redo our studies here. We still had it easier and have it easier to this day than anyone from another race that has immigrated to this country. It just baffles my mind to hear any person who immigrated to Canada complaining about other immigrants. And not only in Canada, you'll hear these same people complaining about immigrants and immigrant law in other countries that they don't even live in. And it's always directed at immigrants and refugees coming from regions in the world where they are largely non-white. Because we had no problem with Ukrainian refugees coming in and we don't to this day. That's regarded as a beautiful celebratory sign of compassion for whatever nation is letting them in. Whereas as soon as it's an immigrant or refugee from another region in the world that's not white, they're a nuisance, they're gonna harm our economy, they're gonna take our jobs, blah, blah, blah. It's so clearly racist and also so hypocritical for any immigrant to have anything to say about it. It's wild. And that's why it's so disappointing and not surprising, unfortunately, to hear that Canada's giving preferential treatment to people coming in from Israel and doing nothing about people needing to come in from Palestine as if they don't have a greater reason to escape the war.
Is she correct?
I honestly thought that Indian people being the least desirable form of Asian was overly exaggerated, but I'm really facing that now, being in the music industry, being told straight up to my face, look, crew, the fact that you're Indian is a really great advantage for what you represent and what you're doing within your music. However, it is harder to promote you since you're not East Asian and since you are melanated. And that's really frustrating to me. I also had conversations with social media managers who told me, yeah, well, you know, sometimes it's just harder to pop off as a person of color on these platforms because for some reason, people of color don't get pushed that often. And that's really frustrating too, because to go anywhere in the music industry now, you need to have a following. But If it's already hard to come up in the music industry as a brown girl, it's already hard to be promoted and pushed within social media platforms as a brown girl, then how the hell is anyone gonna do anything in the music space if it's just this difficult and all the odds are stacked up against us? That's what I face every single day as an aspiring artist in this industry. Because it's exhausting. I really want to do this line of work because I love music and it's my passion. But if I can't move ahead in music because no one is ever going to prioritize me as a brown girl, then how the hell does one do this?
Are you proud to be Canadian? And then
I was.
Yeah, so like what happened, you think?
Yeah.
What do you think happened, bro?
It's not Canada anymore. Look around.
Yeah.
Look around. It's just not. I'm all for immigration. My mom wasn't born here. I'm sure your parents weren't born here or someone's
What's your
grandparents. Irish.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. My child's half Korean. His mother was born in Korea. Like, I'm definitely not like everyone should be born here and that's how it is. But if you're going to come here like how people used to come here and want to become Canadian. What's happening here is everyone is coming here so quickly that they can't even adapt, that they do what they know, and then they start imposing how they live where they're from. With that being said, you guys left for a reason. I'm not saying your country's bad, but you came to a country for opportunity. So come here, and the country needs to be respected. And I feel the people that were here, they're leaving. Like, they don't want to be here anymore.
About 11 million immigrants here in Canada, guys. All ethnicities, a million Ukrainian, a million Latinos, a million, pretty much everything. All types of color shapes. Nobody cares, like white, whatever. Why is that like all the problems come from mostly one ethnicity? And then the moment you bring that up, like you get labeled as racist and people be like, they lose their jobs, like they can't speak about these things. It's just the truth, you know what I mean? It's just the truth. It has nothing to do with racism whatsoever. Because the racism card shuts off communication right away. It's like, you're racist, so like that's it, debate is over. If everyone agrees, guys, that means that we're all racist. All human beings are racist. Everyone is racist in this country. We all like bad people. No, man. I think sometimes you have to take accountability and just go inside and try to understand the problem within you. So imagine a woman that dates only bad people, and then she's like, men suck, like the bad kind are terrible. You have a problem within yourself. Like, the moment you talk, like the racist card is like pulled up. Hey, you're racist right away. Like, it has nothing to do with the race, man. It's all about the culture. It's about how people behave. The problem is this, guys. If the majority of people that are doing stupid shit come from one certain ethnicity, like, it's not wrong to tell these things, guys. It was a democracy. Now it's not a democracy anymore, but Canada was a democracy. You can speak whatever you want.
Is he also correct?
I had a very interesting experience yesterday. I went to an event party above a beauty salon, and there were like 50, 60 people there. Super eclectic group. You had activists, professors, bankers, and I start chatting it up with this 6'5" plus guy, probably in his late 40s, 50s. And somehow the conversation gets to Indian representation and how influential we are in society. And this is on the heels of Biden nominating Ajay Banga to run the World Bank. And he said he thinks that Indians are going to become the new yellow peril, a derogatory term used towards East Asians throughout history. And I've thought a lot about Indian representation throughout corporate America, healthcare, policy, and finance. It is super interesting to note that even though we represent around 1% of the US population, we are overrepresented in finance, corporate America, the healthcare world. It's fascinating how in one generation, the Indian ethnic group came to become so pervasive across many sectors of society. I wonder if one day Indians will face discrimination and bigotry due to the success we've had.
Indians are just 1.5% of the US population, but 60% of all hotels in the US are owned by Indians. 10% of all doctors are Indians, serving 30% of the patients in the US. 10% of all patents filed in the US are by people of Indian origin. 11% of all founders of US unicorns are Indians. In fact, they contribute 6% to taxes in the US, 4 times compared to their population size. But here's something really interesting. Over the past 2 to 3 years, whichever NRIs have been asked if they would consider moving back to India, 30% say that they would, and 50% say that they're confused but they actually might. And over the past couple of years, whoever of my NRI friends have visited India, they express their shock at seeing the kind of development they're seeing in the country and the kind of money people in India are making. Which is why over the next decade and a half, you'll see a huge inflow of NRIs coming back, because manpower flows where the economy and the money flows. And the time for the next 2 decades is in India.
I don't know what you heard about me, But if you can't get a dollar out of me, no Cadillac, no perms you can't see that I'm a PIMP. Hey, tangalang P. P. I don't know what you heard about me, but if you can't get a dollar out of me.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.
P. Sun is shining.